Hi guys, so it's been a while since I've done a film wrap up in this style, so forgive me for my stumbling. I'm already regretting my choice because I know it's going to be really difficult to edit, because when I film it like this instead of the voiceover, obviously I have to keep checking my notes because I can't contain all my emotion unless it's something I really enjoy and I can just kind of, you know, spiel my information. But yeah, so might be a little bit rusty in this format, but I do this for my fireworks. Hello. I do this for my book wrap-ups anyway, so I should be used to it somewhat. Anyway, I actually watched so much films, and it's funny because I'd either have a really productive film month or a really productive book month. I'd rarely get both things done, which sounds silly to people, I know. But I actually read like 11 books during October, and I watched like, let me quickly count. I watched like 11 things that I want to talk about today, so let's get started. So the first film I picked up was one that I bought recently, and that is Mary and the Witch's Flower. This is actually my first Studio Ponoc film. I saw it all over Facebook in the past year or so, and so I obviously wanted to check it out. Initially I assumed it was Studio Ghibli. I didn't realise, I know that sounds really amateur and juvenile, but I didn't realise there were other studios, you know, that does the same sort of thing, same sort of idea. But it's based on the story of The Little Broomstick, which is a book by Mary Stewart. So let me just read you what the synopsis says. Young Mary follows a mysterious cat into the nearby forest and discovers an old broomstick and the strange fly-by-night flower, a rare plant that blossoms once every 7 years. Together the flower and the broomstick whisk Mary above the clouds on far away to Endor College, a school of magic run by headmistress Madame Mumblechook, and the brilliant Dr. D. But there are terrible things happening at the school, and when Mary tells a lie, she must risk her life to try and set things right. Honestly, just that, I was like, oh okay, so she's a witch, da 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 da. But there's so much more to it. Like, it's such a good plot. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars, and here's why. Oh, bless me. Wow. So this was such a fun film. I really enjoyed the story and actually found it to be pretty unique. Obviously it is based off a book, like a storybook, but I'd never really seen a plot like this before. I loved the illustration, and the colour palette of the film was really attractive as well, really nice vibrant shades. Mary as a character, this little girl on the front here, was such a sweet protagonist to follow from. She's one of those characters that never found herself to be good at anything naturally, but it wasn't through lack of trying. She always wanted to try and help out, try and improve herself, but she kept falling short, bless her. I like the fact that as the story progressed she found herself as an individual, so in that sort of sense it's like a coming of age sort of thing, you know, seeing what you're good at, what you're not good at, and kind of getting on with it, which was really nice. It had a little bit of like a nice moral there. Arrogance in her personality didn't go amiss, but she definitely learned humility as well, so it had a good balance in the end. I really love that in this the brooms remind me of horses. If you see it, you'll know what I mean. It's a nice little quirk to add in there. I actually really love that learning witchcraft actually got Mary to love and appreciate her hair, which she absolutely hated to begin with. I thought that was just a nice little touch for like a self-esteem growth. That was lovely to see as well, especially in a character that was obviously depicting a young girl. Oh, my films are disappearing off of my bed. I actually also really appreciated the sort of passing topic of testing on animals, but for magic science, if that makes sense. You'll get it a bit more if you watch it, and sort of how Mary approached that and what she felt about that. That was an interesting sort of outlook on what she would think is right and wrong, so that was a nice touch too. I legit actually cried and laughed with happiness when animals in this film took a bigger role. Like, it was such an awesome scene. The one that I'm thinking of specifically was amazing. I was just like, wow. I wish we got more of Mr. Flanagan. I would love to know more about his character. He seemed awesome. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Mary and the Witch's Flower. Really enjoyed this. Good for children, I'd say. Family film. Loved it. So I actually wanted to do a special mention. Obviously Doctor Who came back recently, I think in October, and so far the new season is absolutely fantastic. The cast for upcoming episodes look awesome. I'm loving that a lot of them are coming from soap shows, so it's interesting to see them in a more dramatic, like less soapy role, if you know what I mean. And already, even though I've watched like maybe 2 or 3 episodes, I've just fallen in love with the new ensemble of characters that are with the Doctor, the new Doctor. Amazing. I I found in certain episodes part of it has dragged, but I've got to say I just love the new persona of the Doctor and how Jodie Whittaker how she portrays that. It's awesome. I know this sounds silly saying it, but she has that stereotypical like woman's warmth, if you know what I mean. It seems more inviting, and it's like she's sort of gathering a little family for herself, and I feel like perhaps other Doctors in the past hasn't necessarily had that sort of aspect, or not to the extreme as I feel Jodie's version of the Doctor has. But I also like that she's just super happy and like goofy in an obliviously like intelligent way. It's a nice balance to have. I feel like the episodes have some little bits of teaching throughout, like kind of showing you what's right and wrong. In I think the second episode there was like a hint of how it was literally just the minor thing, but it was like a hint of how gun violence affects specifically like black teens, and in the gaming community as well. Like it was like the slightest little thing, but I picked up on it and I appreciated that being put in there. It was enough to make me at least think a little bit deeply about something like that, you know. But I don't feel like it came across in a preachy way at all. And the third episode showed something to do with Black history, what I thought was absolutely amazing. It was the episode about Rosa Parks, and it had me and my mother in tears. If you don't want to watch any Doctor Who at all, please just go ahead and watch that episode. It was fantastic. I went to Facebook and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Everybody loved it. All over Twitter, everybody loved it. So it was fantastic. I'm just really excited to see where this season takes us, because so far it's looking extremely promising. I've really pushed away any hesitation that I had about this series to begin with, and once again, you know, fully invested. Really looking forward to where it takes us. So getting back on track with the actual reviews, I went to see Venom at the cinema. It obviously came out recently, and it got a lot of mixed reviews. I wasn't too bothered about going to see it. I just knew it had like a mixed rating and everything, and so I wasn't expecting, you know, the greatest thing in the world. I was a bit like, oh okay, yeah, sure, I'll go ahead and see it. Do you know what I mean? Basically this is the origin story of Venom. Eddie gets infected with this like other planetary like parasite of sorts. Sorry, Venom. If you see the film you realise why I'm apologising. So yeah, I wasn't sure if I needed to see the other Spider-Man films or anything like that to see if it all linked. I didn't know if I needed to check out any of the other, you know, reboots, remakes, all of those. But a quick check online said that it was pretty much a standalone film. Although I will say there does seem to be promise for a sequel, but it's like, it is part of the universe, but like, it's not, is it canon? It's not like directly linked to any of the Spider-Man films before. It doesn't mention anything about like Infinity War or anything like that. So, you know, it's its own thing. So first, when I went to see it, I was like, meh. And to be honest, I felt really sick, so I probably wasn't concentrating on it. It seemed to be dragging a little bit. When I heard Venom speak, I was like, oh, what the hell? I couldn't take it seriously. He sounded absolutely ridiculous. However, the story really started picking up. I started to feel less sick and I was more like invested in what was happening. It got like really good when the action, etc. started to, you know, explode and progressed a little bit more. Music was fab. The film's plot in general was pretty awesome once I got into it, and it was also just bloody hilarious. I wasn't expecting humour like that, but I didn't initially realise that it was rated a 15, so I was not expecting some of like the horror aspects of it. I really wasn't anticipating any sort of head-biting violence that I saw. But overall I really did enjoy this. I can understand perhaps why it had mixed thoughts, because quite a few people felt like it didn't feel like a Venom film. Obviously I've not seen anything to do with Venom really. I've not been interested in that side of like superhero villains. I've not been interested in like Venom, Spider-Man really, until this new Spider-Man came along in the, you know, Homecoming and all that. So I can't really speak from experience there, but I think that was the main sort of argument why people were saying, you know, giving it mixed ratings. But I don't know, I enjoyed it for what it was. Oh, also I finished season 1 of Outpost this month. I've already done a review on it, so I will link that in the cards for you. You can check that out when that's available to watch. Moving swiftly on, I also have done a review on Big Fish and Begonia. Again, I'll link that in the cards for you there, and you can check that out as well. Once again, I was back at the cinema again. I feel like I was seeing quite a few films, like a few new releases last month, which was quite nice actually. But I went to see A Star Is Born. I went to see that, and oh my god, my heart. I gave it a 5 stars. A Star is Born, if you haven't seen it, it's not a nativity sort of thing. Initially when I heard the name I thought it was going to be like a Christmas thing. I don't know. But it's about a growing relationship between like a seasoned musician called Jackson Maine and a struggling singer-songwriter called Ali. And he discovers her and her talents and helps her to grow her talent basically, and inevitably her fame as well. However, as Ali sort of grows into this sort of famedom and is sort of moulded into what society deems as, you know, the perfect pop star, her relationship with Jackson becomes sort of troubled and breaks down, which is sort of heightened as well by Jackson's own internal struggles that he's got going on with what he's dealing with. I've heard it's a remake. I don't know if it's exactly the same thing. Actually, I think I looked it up, and the original A Star is Born, I think it's following an actress rather than a singer-songwriter, but I'm not entirely sure. That was just like a quick little Google search. I accidentally stumbled upon it. Honestly, I felt so emotionally overwhelmed by the end of this. I didn't know like what to do. I was just sitting there in the cinema like, whoa. Just so touched by it that I couldn't put thoughts into words. I was just, you know, when you're just so overwhelmed by something so powerful and you're just trying to figure it all out in your mind. That's exactly how I was with this. My heart was thrown from pillar to post and I just couldn't deal with all the emotions it was making me feel. It almost had me how The Greatest Showman had me when I went to see that. I was literally singing around my living room like some of my favourite songs from it for like ages afterwards. So it definitely left a strong impression. The music, acting, the storyline was absolutely amazing, and it really sort of showcased what happens or what can happen in the lives of like stars, I guess. Took it to many different perspectives and, you know, how the individual handles that sort of responsibility of fame and fortune. You know what I mean? Like, it was really interesting, like, in one respect. I don't mean to go too deep into it, but like psychology, like, it was interesting to see how different individuals react to certain things like that. There was actually a random moment where I thought they were playing a Tenacious D song and I was like, oh my god, yeah, I know this song, I love this song, and then I was like, hold on, this isn't Tenacious D, why would they be playing Tenacious D? I really don't know. It tripped me out. I was like, okay. I will say, I did find how much time had passed between certain events kind of confusing. It wasn't, to me at least, very clear, so I was like, oh wait, is this supposed to be this far into the future, this far? Do you know what I mean? It was a little bit like wishy-washy in some respects. Might have just been my fault, I don't know. I just thought that Lady Gaga's character Ali and Bradley Cooper, who was also the producer, wow, fantastic. I don't know how he managed to, you know, produce it, direct it or whatever, and act it, like, just amazing. But him as Jackson just shows really two different kinds of people and how they both differently react to being famous, you know, and being found. And I just thought it was very interesting, because whether they embrace it or push it away, it was just really interesting to see like the deeper side of what effect it has on a person. It was like we were getting a behind the scenes look into the lives, do you know what I mean, of singers. I actually felt like Ali reflected Gaga in some way. I do feel like there was like an element of a personal touch between, you know, character and actor. And whether or not I'm imagining that or not, the outcome of it all was absolutely breathtaking. If you haven't had a chance to see A Star is Born yet, I urge you to go and check it out, because it will have you thinking about it for ages. It really will. Next up, I watched another new to me film. It's one that I bought, obviously, and this is The Red Turtle by Studio Ghibli. So I gave this one a 5 stars as well, and it says, in a majestic world of intricate hand-drawn textures, a shipwrecked man is found marooned on a desert island, with his attempted escapes thwarted by the stranger and larger-than-life titular red reptile. The man's existence is forever altered when something extraordinary occurs. Academy Award-winning Dutch animator and director Michael de Dock de Wit, don't know if I pronounced that properly, sorry, makes his feature-length directorial debut with a beautiful film that marks the first ever international co-production with the famed Studio Ghibli. I found that absolutely amazing that it's the first international like collaboration of that sort with Ghibli. I thought that was just, one of those sort of milestone moments where it's like, wow, this must have been such an honour for the director as well, that they, you know, he was accepted, that his idea, his pitch was accepted for this with such an amazing, like, iconic animation studio. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, I'd feel proper like proud of myself. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Art style, I'd say it's actually very distinct. You can tell that, I don't know how to word this properly, but you can tell that it perhaps had other influences from other, like, cultural art styles, by which I mean it's not the typical style of Studio Ghibli. Perhaps this director either had a more common art style used in his country, or B, just his unique input in guiding the authors. I don't know, it could have been his unique style, but it's one of those things where you can tell that it's not a typical Studio Ghibli animation, if you know what I mean, which I thought was awesome. It's got its own feel, its own, like, stamp on it, do you know what I mean? I thought that was cool. I mean, I may be wrong about that, but nevertheless, it was quite refreshing to see a newer, different looking art style to what we're used to, perhaps, from Studio Ghibli. Being stranded on an island, obviously there's not a lot of communication in this, which I think makes it easier and accessible for a lot of different people from different countries to watch it, because there's really barely any speaking. It's one of those quiet films you just watch and take it in. I guess what you could say is it uses the story itself to drive on the narration, the story of it, you know, it unfolds naturally with just the use of animation, really. Really loved the use of muted grey tones at night, and then the daytime you'd see the sandy beach colours, the blues of the sky and the sea. Like, you could, it had a nice what's the word, contrast, day and night. I mean, the day colours do look soft as well. To me, it gives definitely the vibes of colour that you would see if you're stranded on a deserted island. Like, after a while it starts to just blend and soft, and you just see it as it is, you know. It's not always going to be vivid because you're stuck there and there's no one to save you, do you know what I mean? So in a psychological sort of way, that's how I viewed it, and I thought it was very interesting. Whether or not they intended it for it to be like that, I don't know. I overthink things, so welcome to my life. I feel like the music and the atmospheric sounds of, like, the nature and everything really helped to push the story along as well. Obviously that sort of substituted the talking in this. There was really no communication, so it helped that we had some sort of sounds to fall back on to help make the experience more immersive. It was, like, soft where it needed to be, but equally dramatic when, you know, scenes required it to be as well. I feel like the music itself had kind of a haunting quality to it, which to me enhanced the magic of the story and just how beautiful it all planned out. The bond our main character finds with the little critters on the island is just too sweet. I don't think we ever find out what his name is. He's just, you know, a man. He doesn't have a name. The little critters that he befriends, I guess you could say, are like his little mascots to me, like cheering him on the sidelines. It was so sweet. You could tell they didn't really want him to leave. Honestly though, I didn't expect anything that this film gave me. I wasn't expecting to feel so emotionally attached to it. I have so many unanswered questions, but it left me feeling really mesmerised and sort of more than heartache. I felt like a deep ache within my soul. Like, it was really deep. Absolutely beautiful. So if you're in the mood for something deeper and just more thought-provoking in terms of animation, definitely check this one out. I didn't already say that was a 5-star, and I think I had a very 5-star heavy month, which is always nice when you find films that you enjoy. So next up, I watched, of course, The Nightmare Before Christmas, one of those films that you can watch during Halloween and Christmas. Love it. One of my favourite films ever. I do want to do a video with all my favourite films, kind of reviewing them. So one day that will happen and you will get a full review of this. But for now, I just want to say I never noticed someone say, "Nice work, Bone Daddy," to Jack before. I was just like, oh, what the hell? Why have I never heard that before? I laughed maybe a little bit too hard. I think I might have just been in that moment where I found things that shouldn't be funny, and I was just chuckling to myself. If I was watching it with someone, I probably wouldn't have even thought that. But you know, when you're just on your own, and you have to humour yourself, don't you? But anyway, yeah, this will be in that eventual video, so I won't review it here. Well, what happened to my mouth? 5 stars though. The same principle with this one. This is the Neverending Story. Got 5 stars for it as well. To be reviewed one day. One thing though, it has such a long like song introduction. I'm like, when is the film actually gonna start? I don't know if I've ever picked up on that before, but yeah, even though the theme tune is awesome, it's a banging tune, love it, so I can't really complain, but it really does drag on before the opening scene. Definitely has those perfectly timed TV ad breaks. This was one of the films that I used to watch on telly a lot when I was growing up. It was always on like Channel 5 or ITV1 or something, and I feel like the cuts are just perfectly simulated for when an ad break needs to come on. But yeah, that's all I say for now. Great film, Neverending Story, one of my favourites. It's a classic. We're actually getting through this quicker than I was expecting, especially because I'm like texting in between, so I thought it was really going to drag, but I've almost done. I think I started this maybe 20 minutes ago, but yeah, we just got 2 more films now, and one of them isn't getting a proper review. But anyway, the next one I watched was the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus. I don't know if I said, but I did like a sort of to be watched at the beginning of October. I was like, I'm not always doing TBRs, but I've never done a what I want to watch before, and so these were on my list. Some of these were on my list, so I'm glad that I managed to get to all of them. But anyway, the first time I'd seen this was quite a few years ago, and I thought it was really awesome, but I've never watched it on DVD with the introduction concerning Heath Ledger's death, so it was nice to have that introduction and kind of, you know, how they felt about him and what he contributed to the film and stuff. Like, that was really cool. So it was interesting seeing that for the first time. And let me tell you what this is about. So, directed by visionary genius Terry Gilliam, the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus features Heath Ledger in his last role. Ah, that's why it was such an emphasis. I didn't realise it was his last role. Wow. Plus a stellar cast including Johnny Depp, Jude Law and Colin Farrell. Dr. Parnassus is an immortal who leads a travelling theatre troupe. Their props include the Imaginarium, a mirror doubling as a magic doorway into a world that makes your wildest dreams a reality. Parnassus's immortality has come at a price, however. He will lose his daughter to the devil himself unless he persuades 5 more souls to lose themselves in the Imaginarium. As you heard from, you know, the actors and actresses on this film has a absolutely stellar cast. I think this might have been the moment, like when I first watched this, when I fell in love with Lily Cole. I just thought she was just so ethereal. She was like otherworldly and like a goddess, and I was like, wow. And then I got a little bit obsessed with her, and I was like, whoa, she's beautiful. But honestly, I remember when I first saw it as well, and even now watching it again, it made me so happy to see Paloma Faith in this, and Montserrat. There was just, Montserrat from Life on Mars, by the way. It's just, I don't know. I think at the time when I first watched this, I was currently watching Life on Mars on BBC One, and I was obsessed with Montserrat as well. I loved her style, even though it was the character she was playing style, and she's like a policewoman or whatever. I don't remember. But, I don't know, there was just something about both of them at the time, and seeing that they were friends, or at least friends in the film, I was like, this is amazing. I'm really getting like geeky now and spieling about nonsense, but in my head it makes sense, and it just doesn't make sense when I'm trying to talk about it, but let's move on. It's honestly one of those weird films where you kind of have to watch it for yourself and see if you like it or not. I do feel like there are hidden meanings in this. I can't fully understand that, so honestly I just enjoy it for the creativity that it is. I feel like it's honestly such a unique story. I don't think I've ever watched or read anything like this at all before. The characters and the cast that plays them are amazing. It's one of those films that I can never forget. I often find myself thinking of random scenes, and I'm like, why is that in my head? And I'm like, oh, hold on, that's from this film. And then I know it's time to watch it again. And lastly, I watched Pan's Labyrinth, which of course, again, I gave it 5 stars. I actually watched this on like November 1st and 2nd because I put it on at a particular time where I know I shouldn't watch anything serious or anything like that, because 1, I struggle to stay awake, and 2, this is kind of like a horror as well. I didn't want nightmares, so I ended up having to turn it off, and like I watched it in the daytime whilst I was getting ready, like the rest of it. I want intense dreams, so I had to split it over the day. But yeah, this is another one of my favourites. I actually think I have a full review on that, so I will link that if that review exists. If not, you'll have to wait again until I eventually do this video with all my favourite films, even though you've seen like most of them here anyway, so it's not going to be a surprise. But that concludes my film wrap up. Let me know if you guys have a preference of how I do this. Sometimes I find the voice over ones are easier to do because I can just sit there, say my thoughts, but they're not as fun to edit. However, these ones where I sit down and talk to it, it takes me longer because obviously I can't remember all of my thoughts. And I don't know, it's more of a chore. Like I think of it like, oh, I have to edit it now. But because I'm watching something visual, I can look for my natural breaks. I kind of, when I'm editing back, I can see when I'm about to break or when I'm about to breathe or something, and it's easier in that sense to edit because I have a visual and I can, do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making sense, but thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you've been watching during October. If you watched any scary things, any recommendations, I'd love to know. If you watched any of these films that I mentioned here today, and what did you think about them if you have. And I'll speak to you in another video soon. Bye.